Solve for x, which means that for each one of these equations, we need x on one side all by itself. So here's A. I need to cancel 4 over 7 from here and then move it over. So how do you cancel it from this side? How can I cancel 4 over 7 from this side? Multiply times its reciprocal. Remember the reciprocal, you flip it around. You flip this number around, that's the reciprocal. After you flip it around, if you multiply, notice what happens. These 7's cancel and these 4 cancel. This becomes a 1. 1 times x is x. But if I multiply this side by 7 over 4, I have to multiply this side by 7 over 4. And then it's 7 times 7 is 49, 9 times 4 is 36. And we can't reduce, so that's the answer. For B, we're going to go ahead and change this division symbol to this one. So this can be written like this also. Now we're going to get this x up on the top. We need to put this x on the top. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply both sides by an x. That cancels this x, cancels it to 1. This drops here. But if I multiply this side by an x, I have to multiply this side by an x. And remember, you have a variable or a constant all by itself. Assume a 1 underneath. So this would be x over 1. So it'd be x times 1 is x, and 1 times 7 is 7. This one falls here. Now I multiply both sides by a 7, so I could cancel the 7 and move it to the other side. So I multiply this side by a 7, and it cancels to 1. X divided by 1 is x. But if I multiply this side by a 7, I have to multiply the other side by a 7. So this will be like 7 over 1. 7 times 7 is 49. 1 times 9 is 9. This one can't be reduced, so you leave it alone. This is x equaling 49 over 9. So this is a solution for the equation. For C, I need to move this 9 over 10 over and then come back for this negative 4 over 5 and move it over. So we do one at a time. So let's cancel this 9 over 10 from this side by subtracting a 9 over 10. This cancels to 0. But if I subtract 9 over 10 on this side, I have to subtract 9 over 10 on the other side. So this cancels to 0. This drops right here. And now we need a common denominator. When you add or subtract, you always need a common denominator. Remember, a common denominator for 10 and 6 would be a number that can be divided by 10 and 6. There are many numbers that can be divided by 10 or 6. We're going to pick one, the 60. So this is going to be our common denominator. So how did the 10 become a 60? I multiplied it times 6. So I have to multiply the 9 times 6. Gives me a negative 54. How did this 6 become the 60? I multiplied it times a 10. So I have to multiply the 5 times a 10. That gives me the 50. Now that we have a common denominator, you go ahead with the subtraction, and we have a negative 4 over 60. So this is what the equation looks like. Now we just need to move this negative 4 over 5 to the other side. Notice on the other side, we went ahead and reduced. Now we're going to move this number to the other side, but we have to cancel it first. So multiply it by its reciprocal. So this is the reciprocal for this number. The 5's cancel, the 4's cancel, this becomes a 1. 1 times x is x. But if I multiply this side by a negative 5 over 4, I have to multiply this side by a negative 5 over 4. So a negative times negative is positive. 5 times 1 is 5. 4 times 15 is 60. Then reduce it. So x, the solution, is 1 over 12. For D, we first have to put these two x terms on one side or the other. I'm going to go ahead and bring this x term to this side. So here's the one they gave us, This one is this one. And I'm going to subtract x over 8, so I could cancel this to 0. But if I subtract x over 8 on this side, I have to subtract x over 8 on this side. So this cancels. This one just drops. This one just drops here. And so notice these two are next to each other. This guy was down here. You could put him up here. Now you collect these. And you notice you need a common denominator. So we're going to work with that. But first, we're going to move this 1 over 4 to the other side by subtracting 1 over 4. You subtract 1 over 4 on this side, subtract 1 over 4 on this side. These cancel. This comes down here. And then these are these here. So this is what we have. These need a common denominator. These need a common denominator before we do the subtraction. But if you don't want to deal with common denominators, you could just get rid of all the fractions. To do that, look at the denominators and ask yourself, what can all these denominators, what number can be divided by all of these denominators? What number can be divided by a 4, an 8, and a 2? Well, there's many numbers. Pick the smallest, 8. Okay, that 8, you're going to multiply this side of the equation by the 8 and the other side by the 8. And notice what happens. Okay, you distribute here, you distribute here. And now you could say 8 divided by 4 is 2. 2 times 3 is 2 times 3 is 6. 8 divided by 8 is 1, so the x just drops. Go to the other side. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 8 divided by 2 is 4 times negative 1, negative 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2 times 1. So it will be negative 2 times 1, negative 2. Now you don't have to work with denominators other than 1. So you collect these, that gives you a 7x. Collect this, it gives you a negative 6. And finally, you could divide both sides by a 5, canceling this 5 and moving it to the other side. So the solution, the answer for this question is x equals negative 6 over 5.